Hi, you're watching Esther at Stampin Star Creations here for my Simply Succulents desktop calendar. So I start off with a piece of A4 purple posy cardstock, and I'm putting it in my trimmer long ways and just trimming off at 29 centimetres, which is 11 7/16. Then we're going to do some scoring, and I am going to bring in the measurements on the screen so you can hopefully follow along. So the first score is at 10 centimetres, which is 3 5/16. Then at 20 centimetres, which is 7 5/16. Then at 23.9 centimetres, 8 7/16. And then at 27.8 centimetres, which is 10 15/16. So if you want, there's the opportunity to screenshot those measurements or to jot them down. So next I'm going to bring in this layer. This is 7 5/8 by 3 3/8 of an inch, or 19.4 centimetres by 8.6 centimetres, and this is just a layer for the designer series paper to sit on. Now this is the wrong measurement, it's 19.1 centimetres by 8.2 centimetres, 19.1 centimetres by 8.2, or 7.5 inches by 3 3/4. So I'm just burnishing those creases that I've made in that purple posy card with the largest score lines to the left and then the smaller score lines to my right. So we're folding that left side in and the right side in the next crease. And then you want to fold that next crease back on itself to the right and burnish. Now this last tiny crease at the end, you might just want to encourage it with your fingers on either side to help it fold over. So folding it back on itself and giving that a burnish as well. So it's like a concertina fold. Hopefully you can see from the image here on the video how that needs to fold. So this larger flap will fold over and then it gets adhered to that thinnest flap at the end. So don't forget to turn your score round so that it's on the back of your project, so you don't really want to see that score line, just to keep your work nice and neat. I'm just applying some multi-purpose liquid glue, and I'm going to adhere this and give it a chance to dry while we carry on with the rest of the project. So just gluing that thin flap and then bringing the other side over to stick down. Just push down the centre onto your table, and this just makes it more stable. Next we're going to bring in the designer series paper. You can choose whichever design you want. There's two sides to our designer series paper, so I've decided to glue the spotty side and actually go for the floral side. And just sticking that down onto the matte piece so you've got an equal border around the edges. So just deciding which way up you want your paper. It doesn't matter so much if it's the spot or the stripe side, but just because these are florals, I was just having a look at the direction in which that was going. You can go ahead and adhere this to the back of your desktop matte layer. Next up is the mat for the calendar. So this is 8.3 centimetres by 5.7 centimetres, or 3 1/4 by 2 1/4. I'm just taking off this front panel off the calendar because we don't need this bit. I tend just to glue along the top of the stitching. This means that if you so wish, you could replace the tab calendar for next year's calendar to recycle it, and it's easier to rip that calendar off. You can decide which side you want your calendar on. One of the sides is obviously going to have the succulents and the other side's going to have the calendar. So using my black Memento ink, I'm going to ink up this larger image and the pot. With larger stamps it's easier to turn them over and then put the ink to the stamp rather than trying to fit it onto your ink pad. So stamping that down and just giving it a moment, press in the centre and then make sure all the edges are pressed as well to get an even image. And then with the pot I'm just taking that to the ink pad to then stamp onto my paper. Then once you've done that, if you have the matching dies, you can go ahead and use those to cut out your images. If not, just grab your scissors and cut around this. And going in, leaving a border is usually quite helpful just in case you make any mistakes. So I've gone ahead and die cut this. Now if you don't have the grey Stampin' blends, I've suggested that you can use the blender pen. So this is picking up the ink from the ink pad and just applying the colour onto the pot image. In my case I'm using grey because I wanted like a granite pot look, but you can use obviously terracotta or whatever other colour you've got or want to use. So I'm just finishing this off with my blends because I want it to look cohesive with all the same colours in the blends. I tend to use the darker colour first and just creating some stripes along one edge of the pot to create some shading. Then coming in with the lighter marker and then just going over what I've done and colouring in the rest of the pot, leaving the left side a bit lighter. Okay, now on to the succulents. I decided to have a bit of a last minute change as to how I was going to colour these in. So I'm using the rich raspberry and I'm going over the ends of the petals of the succulent. I am using the broad tip of my blend, but then I decided to switch out and use the finer side. The finer side you get a bit more detail, and I just felt that it would blend better if I just did a bit of colouring towards the centre of each of those petals or leaves. So if you want to rush your colouring a bit more, then obviously the thicker end is more useful, but if you want to take your time, then just use the felt tip end. So I wanted to incorporate some more colours, and so I'm just using a bit of the light rich raspberry to help blend the purple. If you go over the darker colour that you've just done, it really helps to blend the colours. I'm leaving a gap because I'm going to go in with some of the mint macaron colour. So just using the thicker point here, not being too careful because we're just filling in the spaces now. And again, don't worry if you go over the light rich raspberry, it just blends the colour once this is all dried. I think it's really effective in this colourway, and I'm just going to bring on the one that I did earlier. So this one I've just done the rich raspberry by itself, and this one I've obviously added the mint macaron. So to do the other succulents in the stamped image, I'm trying again a different colourway by using the darker mint macaron inside the leaves where it'd be a bit darker, and then using my light mint macaron to finish off the leaves. And again, this creates a nice bit of shading to your succulents. For the other side, I've just gone in with the light colour in the thicker end of my marker just to colour it all in, and to have a different look from the other side. And then using my dark marker, just highlighting where the stamped image has got those marks on each leaf. So I'm going to stick my calendar straight down and then just work out where you want to position your potted succulent. I do like the idea of it coming slightly off the page because I think it just makes it pop with the dimension. I'm sticking the calendar straight down, deciding which side, and I'm just pushing my hand onto the calendar to keep it steady while I do the gluing. Then the pot is going to get stuck straight down also, but then with the succulents I'm using the dimensionals just pop those up. So you can snip the foam pads and just cut them down into smaller pieces to spread out onto your work. So if you've got the kit, you would have the foam pads, but if you've got some Stampin' Dimensionals, you won't need to cut this down. So just making sure those are evenly spread out, take off the backing, and then you can go ahead and stick this down onto your project. And there's the calendar. And hopefully you've got somewhere nice to be able to display this, or you could gift it, and you've got a space on the back obviously to write your name or to write a message on it. So thank you so much for watching along. There are some other projects in the series, so please be sure to watch those. And this is just to show you the difference in those coloured stamped images. Here's a comparison with the first one I did, and this was using the spots and colouring in the succulents differently, and I've put the calendar on the other side. So hopefully you get some ideas of how you can do your calendar. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to my channel.